Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. We have a problem.
Check my clock, I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols, reaming my body.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in trouble. We are in trouble. Before I get into the actual spoilers, I do want to give a huge shout out to Organic Dinosaur. Organic Dinosaur pretty much translated these spoilers and gave it to us literally 4 days or almost 4 days earlier than we should have gotten the spoilers and information in the actual Boruto chapter. Now, if you guys do want to actually read through the spoilers, it is on Organic Dinosaur's Twitter. If you guys don't necessarily follow her, it's tough, man, because Organic Dinosaur's Twitter is private at this particular point. Now, before I get into the actual contents of the spoilers, this chapter is going to focus primarily on Amado, Sumire, Kawaki, Cold, Eida, and of course the new member of their trio, which is going to be Daemond, the new character. Now, specifically, I do want to talk about the new character. The new character, Daemond, is absolutely amazing. I personally love him. I don't necessarily like to give a lot of my opinions in spoiler videos, but this right here just needs to be said. First things first, Cold, Eida, and Bug, which is someone that works for Baara, was in Bora's hideout. Now, at this particular point, we understand that they're there, mainly because Baara himself has some cyborgs in his hideout, and Cold wanted to go there to pretty much release them. Now, he already released Eida, but somewhere in the conversation, Eida pretty much referred to Cold as her knight, essentially meaning that Cold is going to be her bodyguard. She then says that she has another knight. Now, the other knight is going to be this Daemond guy. Now, this Daemond guy was also in another pod. He wasn't necessarily released yet. They released Daemond. Daemond is so short that they pretty much think that there is nothing in the pod, but lo and behold, Daemond pretty much comes out and hitches a ride on Cold's back, essentially like a piggyback ride. Daemond himself is going to be a kid. He is going to be Eida's little brother, or that's what they say in the spoilers. We don't necessarily know for sure, but that's what they say in the spoiler. Even though he's a kid, he's extremely strong. We understand that these cyborgs themselves were stated to be stronger than Jigen. Obviously, the anime owners don't necessarily know this yet, but from the next episode of the Boruto anime, we are all going to know exactly how strong Jigen is, and if all these cyborgs are essentially stronger than Jigen, that is going to be a problem. That means that this Daemond guy is extremely powerful. But regardless, Daemond did actually display some of his abilities in this chapter right here. Now, he displayed it mainly because the guards were actually coming for the cyborgs and tried to do away with them, obviously because Boruto didn't necessarily want these cyborgs to be freed. They were freed either way. Now these guards are pretty much following orders to actually dispose of the cyborgs if they do get free. Now, this right here was pretty much like a trial run for Daemond. Daemond is just showing off all of his abilities. The main ability from Daemond that was showcased in this chapter was him reflecting his opponent's attacks. And he can reflect his opponent's attacks before his opponent even attacks. So the first guard attacked the cyborgs. The first guard had a blaster on his arm, obviously comes from the scientific technology. Before he even shoots the blast that was on his arm, there was an explosion that happened in the guard's face. So obviously the guard's trying to hit the cyborgs with an explosion, but before he could even get his attack off, it already had exploded in his face. Now the second guard, he had an axe on his back. He went to throw the axe at the cyborgs, but before the axe even left the second guard's hand, the axe somehow ended up in the middle of the second guard's head, essentially splitting his brain in half. Now this right here is where the boards and writers wanted to send a message. The third guard thought he could run. Nah, Daemond wasn't really here for that. Daemond expeditiously caught up to the third guard and kicked him in the neck and essentially knocked him out. The fourth guard understood that there was no running anymore. The fourth guard had a sword on his back. Before this man could even touch the sword on his back, his head was already chopped off. Ladies and gentlemen, this man Daemond is a demon. Now, before I get even further on this character Daemond, on Twitter, people were saying they can't wait until after the time skip so him and Wadi can 1v1 Daemond. They're essentially saying that because Daemond and him and Wadi, they're both kids and they're essentially like the same height. Let's be honest, we need to stop doing this. I remember when Delta was first introduced into the Boruto series, people are talking about they can't wait until Sato 1v1's Delta. Come on. There is no possible way him and Wadi could potentially ever be on the same level as Daemond. Obviously, possibly 20 years down the line or even 16 years down the line. We have absolutely no idea. But we can't say after 3 years of a time skip, him and Wadi could be on the same level of someone that Jigen himself was afraid of. That would be a hell of a time skip. Now, Daemond, because he's a kid, it gave off the vibes that he doesn't necessarily think for himself. In this episode right here, Eida was kind of bossing him around, so in my opinion, I think whatever Eida tells him to do, he's probably going to do it. And obviously, because he's a kid, sometimes he might be rebellious, similar to how Boruto is. But as I said at the beginning of these spoilers, I really like the character of Daemond. Now, the next big thing about this chapter is essentially Kawaki potentially getting his karma seal back. Now, this essentially came from a conversation with Amado. In this conversation, Kawaki and Amado were talking about how Kawaki wants more power. and Amado posed the proposition that he could potentially give Kawaki his karma seal back. At this particular point, I mean, everybody's wondering, like, what do you mean give Kawaki his karma seal back? Of course, if he gives Kawaki his karma seal back, Ichigo could potentially pop back up. Now, from my interpretation of these spoilers, with the karma seal that he would potentially give Kawaki, Amado is kind of ensuring that Ishiki Otsutsuki would not necessarily be able to revive into the body of Kawaki, because of course Ishiki Otsutsuki's soul is no longer with us. He already died. Now, it's just a matter of if we can actually trust Amado, but in regards to this chapter right here, Kawaki doesn't. Kawaki flat out disagreed with this offer. He 100% said that he would not take this offer. Now, we seen what Kawaki looked like in chapter 1. We seen what Kawaki looked like in episode 1. He has the karma seal. So in the future, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Kawaki did take this offer. Now, another huge thing that happened, Amado was acting extremely sus. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Sumire for this chapter right here, mainly because she had a very big part. She essentially called Amado out and was asking if he had any sort of ulterior motives. Now, at this particular time, she wasn't necessarily asking in regards to her pretty much being like a spy or anything like that, but Amado was calling her out and pretty much saying, like, if you're being a spy, what you're doing is not smart, because obviously Amado himself, he's pretty much being extra cautious. He understands that he's in a foreign place where people around him don't necessarily trust him, so he's not necessarily being and speaking extremely freely. So when Sumire approaches him and tells him that he's acting very suspicious, he is going to be on guard, and that's exactly what he was. But real quick, the end of this chapter was extremely suspicious with Amado. Now, when it comes to Kodachi writing the Boruto manga, if this was him writing the Boruto manga at this particular point, it's not, it's the OG Masashi Kishimoto, but if this was Kodachi writing this manga, I would say for certain, 100%, Amado has some sort of ulterior motives. But with Kishimoto penning the manga, what Kishimoto is very good at in regards to this Boruto manga is that he fleshes things out. He builds up suspense. He has the audience thinking. Again, with Kodachi, he's like, yo, fight after fight after fight, actual information after actual information after actual information. But with Kishimoto, I have to think that now it is not 100% set in stone. But I do want to know what you guys think about these spoilers in the comment section below. Again, I don't necessarily want to read everything line by line. There was a lot of information in this chapter, but I just gave you guys the 3 main things that I did take away from this chapter. I'm going to go through everything in my actual review, and of course, over the course of the next couple of days, I'm most likely going to be talking about the spoilers even more, especially when we do get some actual scans that come out from the Boruto chapter, so you guys should stick by for that. And of course, for my review, so you guys can get all of my opinions about this chapter. But it's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.